I think talk about modern NBA. Like, what do you think is a really good defender? Like, do you like Rudy Gobert, Kawhi Leonard, Draymond Green? Who's your top picks for the best defenders in current NBA?
Current NBA, well, some of the best defenders I've seen depends. I think that some of the best right now, Anthony Davis, and Dwight Howard and McGee are showing flashes as well. And at the same time, Kawhi Leonard is a very good perimeter defender. Paul George is pretty solid, and Patrick Beverley, and Avery Bradley. Both of these guys are very good perimeter defenders.
Yeah, the Clippers defense is solid.
LeBron James is actually Is
he getting back? Because I know a lot of people say he slacked off a bit.
The last couple of years, he slacked off a little bit. The last few years, but LeBron, when he
go back to his Miami days,
Cleveland days, LeBron was one of the most unique defenders I've ever seen. So great defender, and this year LeBron's actually really good at defense again. So this year, LeBron's playing tremendous defense as well. So he's being a leader, trying to play great defense. And he's actually taken up the challenge. If you saw some of the big games, in pivotal points, he's actually guarding Kawhi Leonard, he's guarding Paul George, he's guarding Giannis. And
Giannis is a good defender as well, actually.
Giannis is a good defender as well.
Yeah.
But if you saw in the head-to-head matchups, quite often Giannis wasn't able to guard LeBron, but LeBron was able to guard Giannis.
Interesting.
And so when LeBron really wants to be, he's actually an elite defender when he wants to be. And hopefully in the playoffs this year, he turns himself into an elite defender, especially during a tough competition like against the Clippers. If he can slow down Kawhi even just a bit, then that could be the series right there if he can actually stick on that guy. So that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with most of the picks that you mentioned. Those are all really good picks. And then for me, my personal opinion on who I think are the best modern day NBA defenders, I have to go with Anthony Davis. Like you said, Anthony Davis has to be up there. And Dwight Howard, right? Although he's lost some of his athleticism from when he was in his prime, when he won those 3 Defensive Player of the Years, but still, he's still got some rim protecting capabilities left, right? So Dwight Howard and Kawhi Leonard for sure, right? One of the best perimeter defenders of his era. Draymond Green, I think, should be in the conversation as well. He was a huge part of that Warriors championship roster. He's also Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time All-Defensive. I think one guy that doesn't get mentioned enough is Tony Allen. Tony Allen he was 6-time All-Defensive, and his stats don't show up on the sheet. Like, he's not a box score guy, right? He doesn't score very much, but I think he was a crucial part of his teams for sure. And I think he did win 1 championship with the Celtics as well, so he is a championship guy as well. People don't realize Rajon Rondo actually had 4-time All-Defensive. I wouldn't consider him as good as Chris Paul, but he's not bad defensively either, right? I consider Chris Paul probably the best defensive PG of his era. But Rajon Rondo, again, not bad defensively either, at least for his position, right? For his era. Rudy Gobert, I think is pretty good, right? 4-time All-Defensive first team, got Defensive Player of the Year. Giannis, like I mentioned, I think he's coming up there. He just got Defensive Player of the Year this year, so he's definitely coming up. Paul George, as you mentioned, Jimmy Butler, 4-time All-Defensive as well. That 76ers team with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, they were both pretty good defenders as well. So, so there's a lot of good defenders in today's NBA. Actually, LeBron James, who you mentioned, is getting some of his defensive capabilities back. I think he was definitely the best defensively when he was in Miami. Then he kind of slacked off a bit, but still pretty good defensively now. And also Joakim Noah. Yeah, kind of forgot about him because he kind of just disappeared, didn't he? He had this one really good year, and then he kind of just disappeared off the map. But he and Jimmy Butler actually had a pretty potent defensive pair, actually, when they were with the Bulls. So, yeah, can't forget about him. I think Chris Paul, actually.
Yeah, Chris Paul's a good defender.
Yeah, I think I forgot to mention them, like him and Jason Kidd. I think I forgot to mention, like, among point guards, the defenders, they're up there, probably after Peyton and Frazier, but yeah.
I think it depends. I think, like, Jason Kidd isn't exactly a one-on-one defender. But he's kind of like your John Stockton type, where really high basketball IQ, so he's able to get a lot of steals with his basketball IQ. One-on-one defense, he's okay, but I wouldn't say he was like a stopper.
Would you say Chris Paul's a better defender than Kidd?
Different. But I say Chris Paul has a bit more of a one-on-one stopper type of mentality on defense, a little bit more. So yeah, Chris Paul is definitely a very good defender. Isaiah Thomas, the Detroit Pistons Isaiah Thomas from the 80s was a very good one-on-one defender as well. That's something that people don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because he didn't make any all-defensive teams, right? Even though that Pistons team was known for defense. Bill Lambier, Rick Mahorn, Dubar, right? Rodman. So, so the thing was, Isaiah Thomas, I guess his defensive credential didn't show up in the stats box as much.
Exactly.
Right? But maybe if you watch the games, you'll see it.
You watch the games. Good one-on-one defense.
Yeah.
Stays in front of his players. Gives them trouble all the time. So he's a nice defender. There's just too many defenders that are underrated sometimes. I mean, you also got guys like Stacey Ogman. We call him the Plastic Man. About 6'7".
I think one of the most interesting teams, when we're talking about like all-time teams, actually, we did that one in one podcast.
Right.
The underrated teams are the ones that don't have, like, they're not top-heavy. Actually, like the Miami Heat's very top-heavy. 2013 Heat or 2001 Lakers are very top-heavy. But the most interesting teams to me are the 2004 Pistons because they didn't have a solid superstar. It's basically just a good mix of offense and defense across the board. And the 1979 Sonics. That one doesn't get talked about enough as well. But Dennis Johnson, also very clutch player and also very good defender. Jack Sigma, also a pretty underrated defender as well. And also a very solid shooter for the time. Right. So
also Bill Walton. Bill Walton is actually
and Bill Walton is very interesting. Like if he didn't get injured, he would be in the conversation for one of the top centers of all time.
Exactly.
Yeah, because he has such high basketball IQ. He was, like I said before, the evolutionary Bill Russell.
Exactly.
He was like the white Bill Russell.
Exactly.
So, which makes sense actually because to me, he has elements of Kareem in him as well because he played under John Wooden as well in UCLA. So he knows the fundamentals and everything.
Exactly, because like the way a guy like Bill Walton can transition from defense to offense as a center was really similar to Bill Russell. When he's stopping the ball, getting a defensive play, or when he's getting a rebound,
you block it, then an outlet pass, keep it in bounds, right?
Exactly. The first thing he's doing when he's turning on a rebound is he's looking for the outlet pass, just to get his guys running, get the easy basket. So that is just some of the best I've seen. And so unfortunately the injuries actually slowed him down afterwards, but Bill Walton's definitely up there as well. Some of the most unique players we've seen. And that Pistons team you're talking about, I mean, you got Ben Wallace, but you also had Rasheed Wallace, who was a really great defender as well.
Rasheed Wallace was underrated.
Yeah, Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace was pretty much their anchor on offense. Rasheed Wallace was a really efficient post scorer. He had a really reliable jump shot, really reliable post turnaround jump shot. He could even spot up for the three at a really efficient clip.
He was. I think people look at Rip Hamilton as the main scorer on that team, but Rasheed Wallace is probably the underrated guy on that team. And Chauncey Billups, of course, people know him because he was the point guard. And
he was the clutch. He was one of the clutch scorers for the team as well. Rip Hamilton was like the motor, but Rasheed was like the anchor. Because Rasheed's a guy that can anchor your offense in the post. But Rip Hamilton's a motor that keeps running around in those off screens like Reggie Miller does. Only Rip actually does it in the mid range, and Reggie does it in the 3-point line. And then you get Chauncey, who pretty much can come up for a big shot if you really need it, especially in the clutch. So it's a really unique mix, that 2004 Pistons team, and you got some really good defenders in Tayshaun Prince. And Tayshaun Prince, really good one-on-one defender, and also Tayshaun Prince actually can score in various areas. Like he can actually spot up for a three, but he can also post up. Because he's got those long arms, so he can post up for those little mid-range bunny hook shots. So it's pretty unique. And the key for them is just under Larry Brown, their execution was so good. Their execution both on defense and offense was nearly flawless. Like they don't really make mistakes.
They were a very almost perfectly constructed team in that sense. Actually, the 2011 Mavericks were similar to that because it's not top heavy, right? I mean, everyone thinks of Dirk, but it's not Dirk. They got so many good veterans on the team. Sean Marion was very underrated. Peja Stojakovic was actually on that team as a bench player.
They had Jason Kidd,
right?
Jason Terry
with a veteran experience. Jason Terry better than people think. Right.
Leandro. They have Barbosa. Barbosa was actually pretty tremendous on the pick and roll.
Tyson Chandler,
on the team, as their defensive anchor. That was actually a really good team, and Rick Carlisle is a very, very good coach. They were actually probably better coached than that Miami team. So when they got to a half court set, Miami really, because I was always talking about the problem with like LeBron teams where he never really had a great system to work with, where they always played a very simple box one offense, a 1-2-2 offense all the time. It's so simplistic, and all you do is have LeBron at the top of the 3-point line, and then wasting time until you finally decide to make your play, and it's one and done. That's it. You're wasting time dribbling the time away. And then you finally make your play off of the pick when there's only like 8 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, you make one pass, and it might not be a good shot, but that's all you got because the clock's running down. And that was the problem with Miami's execution versus Dallas's execution. Dallas, in terms of their execution, was just way better coached than Miami was. So when they stuck in a
better coach, and it's also more experience. Like they just have more playoff experience overall. This is the first year actually LeBron played with Wade and Bosh.
Yeah.
So they need some chemistry together. And I think LeBron actually learned from this experience, right? In the finals, he was too many times he was too afraid to shoot, right? So he would defer the ball.
He was a bit hesitant, so then he was trying to work the ball around.
But this is, I think it's forgivable because this is actually his second finals, right? And I don't even know if we should really count the first, but like his first real finals, I would say. Yeah. So I don't know. Like people say it is his worst finals, but like still, I think he was kind of a learning experience for him.
It wasn't. You know what? Like everybody has off series and off games.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, Kobe's had finals where he only shot 38% for the whole series in finals. You know, and
2004 finals,
yeah,
2008 finals.
Exactly. Some people don't talk about that, right? But Kobe has that a lot.
Yeah.
And Magic Johnson had a pretty rough finals too.
The 84 finals.
Exactly, and they call him Tragic Magic for a while, right? But people don't talk about that anymore. But then people was always talking about LeBron's 2011. But you know what? Almost every superstar has done that.
Yeah.
Maybe except for Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, even Jordan has had some off series, maybe not as glaringly bad, but yeah.
Jordan's learning experiences came before the finals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when he lost to the Celtics, the Pistons, right?
Exactly.
The Bucks, I think, lost once.
Yes, yes, early on.
Yeah.
I think during his first year.
But those were all learning experiences for him, though.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like LeBron, that was like his one off series. But if you see like all the other stuff after that, he was on point in almost pretty much every other final series.
Yep.
Pretty much on point. Just a guy sometimes I think for a lot of the superstars, he's one of the more unluckier superstars, I think, in the history of the league in terms of he was drafted onto a team, never got much help, and he never really had a great coach to coach him, like some of the other greats. He never had a Phil Jackson, never had a Greg Popovich, guys like that. And it took him a while. And he always played under an inferior system, in my opinion, especially an inferior offensive system compared to other teams. So you saw that 2011 Dallas team, they were running circles around Miami in the half court. Like literally running circles around them. Yeah. And their execution was
I don't get when people say that was a bad team. Dallas actually won more regular season games.
They swept the Lakers.
They won more, and they won more regular season games than the Heat did in the Western Conference.
Exactly.
So like they were not like such an underdog like people think.
They were better coached than that Miami team.
Like people thought that was an underdog. It's like no, they were actually a really good team.
Their offensive execution was actually a lot better. It's just Miami had a bit more star power in LeBron and Wade, but then the execution really goes to Boston. It goes to Dallas.
Yeah.
And good coaching. And what we forgot to say is, at least Miami did win some games against them in the finals. I mean, that same Dallas team swept the Lakers.
No one talks about this.
No one talks about it. They swept the Lakers, and it was 6'4", almost 40-year-old Jason Kidd guarding Kobe Bryant all series. In the entire series, it was Jason Kidd.
Yeah, no one talks about this.
Jason Kidd was like 39 years old roughly around that time. He's 6'4".
They keep talking about Jason Terry outscoring LeBron, but they never talk about
Jason
Kobe.
Kidd. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. So does that mean Jason Terry also beat Kobe as well? Unfortunately, and it was Jason Kidd guarding Kobe too.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you actually put like prime Michael Jordan, in a playoff series, and you said, "I'm going to put 39-year-old Jason Kidd on you." Imagine what Jordan would do against that. I mean.
Actually, Wizards Jordan was pretty good. He's better than people think.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing about the Wizards Jordan was he had a lot of knee problems. Actually, before every game, he actually had to extract fluids from his knee, which a lot of people didn't know about. A lot of times when he had off games, his knees were just really, really sore. And sometimes...
But he still put up like 40-point games.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, even though he was like 40 years old at the time.
I think he had a 50-point game as well.
Yeah, and he was 40 years old.
Yeah, I think, was it against Charlotte? I think it was.
Yeah.
He had a 50-point game.
So that's...
And he had another 39-point game.
So his Wizards, it wasn't as bad as people think. I think.
No, he played all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So I think that's good.
I think that's good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. We got a lot of material.
Yeah, that's good.